Namaste, Jai Bharat. When you talk about philosophy or when you think about philosophy, on a very broad spectrum, when we look at it, we have two kinds of philosophies in front of us. One is normally called as the Indian philosophy, which I would like to call as Bharatiya Darshan, and two, which is Western philosophy, which I would like to call as European philosophy, to be more specific. These two things have many things in common indeed, because they discuss and philosophize areas with much similarity. But then they are not one and the same. They are different on many levels. First of all, the method of philosophizing in European philosophy is entirely different from the method of philosophizing in Bharatiya Darshan to begin with in the sense how the whole thing has originated. When we say European philosophy, it starts with Greek thinking to whatever we find in modern times. But Bharatiya Darshan, which people often call as Indian philosophy, has a kind of consistency and continuity with how it originated, how it is. One thing very explicit, that hardly anyone from European academic philosophy had tried to understand Bharatiya Darshan. On the other hand, from Bharatiya Darshan, there are many who tried and understood the European process of thinking and doing. I've told you the methods itself are different. Methods are different means how, first of all, let's understand how the Europeans philosophize. The beginning of European philosophy ought to be from the Greek thinking pattern, and let's see how the Greeks thought. Of course, the Greeks, when you speak about the Greek thinking, Greek philosophy, we have very limited resources, in the sense that we have one person who is known to us as Socrates, from where the whole thing is expected to begin, but not really the case. Socrates, and then his student Plato, and his student Aristotle, and then nothing. With that Aristotle, and after some time, the Greek philosophy came to an end to begin with the invasions of Rome, and then all of this. That's gone. The Greek philosophy is gone. The Greek Hellenistic religion is gone, and the Greeks, everything is gone through invasions. First the Romans, and then subsequently Christianity's invasions. Both were different kinds of invasions, but nonetheless they were invasions. Now, that's where it starts, how they are philosophized. Plato, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, but there were thinkers in Greece who were before Socrates, who were normally and generally called as the pre-Socratic thinkers. Not very many in number. Someone like Thales of Greece, or someone like Anaximander, all these few people, not very many again. And then the Greek philosophy lost itself with the Christianity spreading, and then the Christianity rather, can I say, substituted or took the place of philosophy? I don't think I can say that, but nonetheless, philosophy did not begin or continue. Philosophy did not continue. The Greeks have lost their knowledge tradition, and then what we see is Christianization, and then what we see is papacy. And papacy, of course, as the European terms is understood very clearly and very correctly, has a 2000 years of roughly 2000 years of papacy. They under compulsion called that period as the dark period of history. They called it as dark period of history because nothing new could develop during the period of papacy. Knowledge did not originate, or knowledge did not go any further. during the period of papacy. That's what they call it as the Dark Ages. Right? It comes to an end only after the cessation of papacy, maybe roughly with the revolt from Martin Luther. Martin Luther, a Dominican monk who first reacted against Pope, as we know, saying that, see, look, I'm also, he was a Dominican monk. He says, I also read and understand Pope said, Bible, why should I depend on someone else's interpretation through my comprehension? Now, this is how the whole thing began. It's only after that, it's only when the papacy weakened, and then later it ceased to exist, that thought system began. And what we have on record is someone called Descartes, thought like that. So then from Descartes you have a lot of other people. You have this great thinkers like the German thinkers, and the Kant and Hegel, and many such people. And then the human empiricism, and like that we have this Spinoza, Bergson, all these characters. So they, of course, later took European philosophy into newer directions. There was papacy, then of course there was a euphoria of science. By the time it's 19th century, Europe was under the pressure of a kind of euphoria for science that should be different direction, different thoughts. So let me not bring that into it, otherwise the whole thing will become very long, which I don't want. That their method, roughly calling it as, their method is thinking. There's nothing else. They just thought. They just thought earnestly, consistently, coherently, systematically, and then came out with their thoughts as theories. Let me call this as speculative philosophy, speculation, which essentially individual speculations. And then, of course, those who agree with one person's speculation become his followers or disciples, something like that. So let me put in general, the European philosophy's best. The method of philosophizing was mostly speculative. Though Bergson would speak of intuitionism, which comes very close to something like Bharatiya Darshana. But in Bharat, the method of philosophizing was not speculation. It was not based on centering on individuals. They had schools of thought in Bharat. Of course, there are individuals in the schools of thought, but then they were collectively doing things, and many times you don't find who writes what. They hardly mention their name, and many things which were written, their names were not mentioned. They rather must have gone beyond their own names, going beyond name, the so-called identity. It's difficult to find out which Bharatiya thinker comes from which part of Bharat. Sometimes we know, but many times we don't know. They were from where. Maybe he was active in Kashmir. Maybe he's originally from South. Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati, when he initially came to know that his name is, if I'm not wrong, Natarajan Iyer, which is explicitly from Tamil Nadu, we won't know that. They go beyond their regionality. It's typically like sannyasa, where you forget your purvashrama, means the previous life, before the beginning of sannyasa. They forget their own names. Everything becomes changed. So that's what happens to the professors of Bharat. And the professors of Bharat used to be known those days as rishis, sannyasis, maharshis, munis, etc. So they were kind of acharyas. The munis are also other they also got other different specializations. Fundamentally they were acharyas. Here, the method of knowing, I will just say that and conclude. Here, the method of knowing was not speculative. It was rather experiential, what we say, because they adopted the method of yoga. And yoga is not simply practicing yogas. Yoga, by definition, is supposed to be a method of union of the mundane with the transcendental. That's a different area. Shall take a longer time to explain, so I'm not venturing into that. Where there's a stage in yoga, and a product of that stage is called yogaj. Yogaj means the ability to uh, gather knowledge other than your sense organs, or knowing through without using sense organs. So you get knowledge without using your sense organs, hence it is called directly experiencing the knowledge. So the knowledge is called as experiential. On the one hand, European thinking is called as speculative, and this, of course, I would like to call it as experiential. That is knowing directly. And hence we have all these amazing texts written with very seriously utmost accuracy in front of modern way of knowing through science of various things. So all these texts which are associated with religion in the common parlance are really not religion speaking. They speak of various kinds of knowledge. So the Vedas, Upanishads, whatever it is, they are essentially knowledge texts, not the kind of religious texts of do's, don'ts, this, that, promises in heaven and promises of rewards in heaven and threats of punishment in hell. None of these things do exist. They are basically knowledge which discusses every aspect of knowledge, knowing every aspect of knowing, and most amazingly, no area of knowledge is left untouched. So speculate. So this is a normal distinction between Bharatiya Darshan and European philosophy, and then when it comes to academics, I've seen, for European universities, they would hardly know about Bharatiya Darshan. They may mention, but in Bharat, there is a kind of confusion. They fail to balance between the Bharatiya Darshan and European philosophy. Somewhere you find the universities focus more on European philosophy, and somewhere you find, in many places you find, the universities focus more on Bharatiya Darshan. But then hardly you come across a situation where these students are balanced. Because these two things are different, though related, with different methods, though focused on similar things and going forward, etc. There are a lot of things, because they both are essentially philosophy. So there are a lot of similar things, but not really one and the same, that kind of a situation. So in a curriculum of a university, there should be some kind of balance between this east-west kind of things. So one of my colleagues, his friends, used to speak of, you have to remain rooted and rather really rooted in Bharatiya Sanskriti and Bharatiya knowledge tradition, but then go and remain connected with the European speculative philosophies. This process hardly happens in our universities. That's not very normally happening. So this is an area where one can go more deeper into it. But we meet again. Till we meet again. Namaste. Jai Bharat. Jai Shri Ram.